Our Kira K. Dixon had a chance to catch up with Adam earlier today, and she joins us now. Kira, what did you learn?
Well, as you mentioned, Damon, the 2020 Genesis Invitational champ is in the field, but the last time that he was at Torrey Pines was for the 2021 U.S. Open, where he finished tied for 35th. But Adam's been quite busy off the golf course. He recently made a trip to the White House to visit President Donald Trump alongside Commissioner Jay Monahan, and this is what he had to say about being back here at Torrey and that meeting.
Well, happy to be here. Just thankful that everyone at Genesis and the TGR Foundation could go this extra length to get the tournament on this week, given what's been going on. I'm thrilled to be here. And of course, I think it kind of suits me. Riviera is one of my faves, but I'm pretty comfortable down here as well. So looking forward to a good week and kind of need to get my season going. I've played a couple of events. Nothing great, so looking for that kickstart.
Now, as a player director on the PGA Tour Policy Board, you have been busy in some of your recent discussions, most notably is the trip to the White House with Commissioner Jay Monahan to sit down with President Donald Trump. Could you characterize that conversation?
Well, I think it was all really positive. And, I'm certainly not going to speak out of turn. I'm sure Tiger would like to comment because really that's how the meeting came about. And, I think it's just a positive thing that the President of the United States, is such a lover of the game of golf and understands some of the challenges facing the professional game at the moment. And given that things have, which is widely known, been sitting with the Department of Justice amongst the professional game. This is all crazy stuff for me to talk about. Can't believe it. But, that he's a lover of the game and hopefully can be very helpful in kind of getting a resolve for the professional game and help everyone move forward.
In sitting down and speaking with President Trump, what would you describe his motivations are for wanting to get involved in the reunification of men's professional golf?
Well, it's pretty easy to tie him to the game of golf. He is passionate about it. He owns several golf properties, fabulous destinations around the world. And he has a relationship with Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund. And, I genuinely think he's a fan of the PGA Tour as well. Certainly a fan of Tiger Woods, like most we all are. And given that this has been tied up in government, believes he can be very helpful.
For those that might not understand why men's professional golf needs to have any sort of influence from the current administration, can you explain some of the roadblocks that the administration could help in terms of bringing the game back together?
Well, I think that the difficult thing is for maybe the administrations to understand why professional golf, coming back together and working more harmoniously, let's say, is not a breach of antitrust or anti-competitive issues, and that's really what was being looked at. And hopefully this can be helped by the president, and things can move forward at a faster pace now.
In the past, the president has said that he could quickly fix the deal and the issues that men's professional golf has seen. And as far as the timeline goes, what are you most hopeful for as we move forward in actually getting to that result?
Yeah, I think the president is going to help things move along in every sense. But I guess. Things kind of sit with him a little bit at the moment, so I really can't speculate on that. I wouldn't speak out of turn or in front of the President of the United States on any of this.
So Adam told me that he never thought that as a golfer he would be asked these sorts of questions or having these sorts of meetings. But as a player director on the PGA Tour Policy Board, he has found himself in these situations. And now the big question is just timing and when we get from the conversations that are all happening to potential action, guys, with reunification of men's professional golf and figuring out what happens next between LIV and the PGA Tour.
Kira K. Dixon with the former world #1, Adam Scott. Fascinating times, Ryan Lavner. What does this all mean? Roadblocks, visits to the White House. Is a deal imminent?
Really positive is what Adam Scott said in that. And I think when you look at President Trump now returning to the White House, has relationships with parties on all sides of the issue. The Saudis, as well as the PGA Tour, and he's said in the past that he would relish the opportunity to sort of fix men's professional golf, which has been damaged since the introduction of LIV in 2022. And so it certainly seems like we're finally getting close to the financial component of this deal. And obviously that's very tricky when you're talking about $1 billion plus that could be injected into the PGA Tour enterprises. I would argue that the harder part is what to do player-wise.
Yes.
And reintegrating the players back into the PGA Tour, because once the financial part is finalized, then the clock is really ticking. Because there really is no excuse for the PGA Tour to not bolster and strengthen their events right away, knowing that there are some players on the LIV side who, if reincorporated into the PGA Tour, could make signature events.
How many?
Could make full field events.
How many players? How many? Like three, five?
I think 5 to 7 could probably make an immediate boost. And so once the financial part is done, like the PGA Tour players, PGA Tour leadership probably needs to get over some of the jealousy or the resentment or the bitterness that's been felt over these past couple years in the divide of golf civil war, and find a way to get them back, and to get them back quickly for the sake of the fans who've really been damaged in all of this.
Always been my biggest question, though, is how they would come back, how many, and how soon, how quickly would some of those players who stayed loyal to the PGA Tour, who didn't take $200 million and $300 million, are just going to say, hey, come on back. Come on back. You left and took the money, and now come back and maybe take my money, potentially.
For the betterment of the PGA Tour, those hard feelings probably need to be pushed aside to make the PGA Tour as strong as it possibly can.
Do you think we're getting to a point where there's more unity in the PGA Tour membership and on the board? Because for a while the thought was that it was split down the middle. Some said, let's get them back yesterday, and others were saying, no, hold on, those guys left. They can't just come waltzing back to the PGA Tour and take my daily bread.
No, I still think there's some really hard feelings that are going to need to be hashed out over the next couple of months. You talked about Rory McIlroy a couple weeks ago at Pebble Beach when he's talked about the future. He said, I think the biggest obstacle, besides the Department of Justice right now, is the differing futures of what professional golf should look like.
Yeah, lots still to figure out. We'll see what happens.